Hey everyone, what's happening? Brent Axe here from syracuse.com. We're live on the Syracuse Orange basketball Facebook page, and it's been a busy past couple of days here. Friday night, Syracuse gets a big win in the Camping World Bowl over West Virginia, and we roll into Saturday, last Syracuse men's basketball game of the year, the last game of non-conference play, and what we saw today at the Carrier Dome was something rare for Syracuse. And that was kind of an easy day, kind of a ho-hum, go through the motions, beat a bad basketball team kind of day for Syracuse basketball. And frankly, they'll take it. Frankly, Syracuse could use it. There's been a lot of drama in non-conference play. There's been a lot of close games, some expected, some unexpected, certainly, in non-conference play. So a day like today, when Syracuse comes out of the gate strong and continued that throughout the day, they will certainly take it. So that's it. One game today to close out non-conference play, and it's all ACC play from here on out. The Orange will start league play a week from today, as a matter of fact, at Notre Dame. So why don't you guys hop in those comments, talk some Syracuse basketball. I'll start responding to you here shortly after we go over a few things. And we're here thanks to our friends at Crouse Health. So we mentioned it was kind of a ho-hum day for Syracuse. No drama. St. Bonaventure, boy, did they – you got to keep something in mind. Last year, this was an overtime game. This was a game that I believe was 53-53. At the end of regulation, goes into overtime. O'Shea Brissett had an opportunity to win that game, misses a layup, and St. Bonaventure escapes the Dome with a win. And that's huge. Going back, before Georgetown and before a lot of the rivalries that came around for Syracuse, this was it. So for fans that really stretch back and remember that Syracuse-St. Bonaventure rivalry back in the day, that was a huge win for the Bonnies in non-conference play a year ago. Anything but that today. Syracuse did something they haven't really done all year, and that has come out strong. Tyus Battle scored 10 of the first 12 points of the game, and Syracuse just kept rolling from there. Tyus Battle, by the way, finishes a perfect 8 for 8 on the day. Let's give you some numbers from this game. Battle was 8 of 8 shooting the basketball, got to the free throw line 6 times, made 5 of those 6 shots. So of the 14 shots combined that Tyus put up, he only missed 1. Scored 21 points on the day. Elijah Hughes had a big second half, scoring 11 of his 16 points. Then Buddy Boeheim with a nice day for the Orange, had 12 points. Overall, 10 different Syracuse players scored beyond Tyus, beyond Elijah. It was a mixed bag. I thought Marek Dolzaj had a great game today. 9 points for him, 5 rebounds, 3 assists on the day, was really moving the ball. He started his second straight game at center. We'll see if that continues in ACC play with bigger bodies, obviously, and more physical teams on the way, though. We'll talk about Notre Dame here shortly. That's kind of a shorthanded team at this point, so that might be a game Syracuse can take on the road next week. The big number in this one, if you're going to take one thing away from this game, there is a stat that you take that old red pen and you circle, and that is turnovers. St. Bonaventure had 25 turnovers in this game. As you would imagine, that is a season high forced by Syracuse. So how many points did Syracuse get off of that? 32. 32 points off turnovers. St. Bonaventure really making it easy there. We mentioned how well Tyus Battle shot the basketball in this game. Syracuse overall shot really well. 29 of 50, 58%, 17 of 22 from the free throw line. That's 77%. Free throws matter, as we know. In the meantime, St. Bonaventure, awful day shooting the basketball, 16 of 45. That's 35%. They were 13 of 22 at the free throw line. They did win the rebounding battle. They picked up a lot of garbage time rebounds in the second half, but did win that, 31 to 29, 13 offensive rebounds to Syracuse's 6. So if you want to pick some nits, that's something you can really pick on there, that Syracuse didn't really hit the boards the way that they need to against a team like this. But when you got a team that's turning the ball over 25 times, you got to take advantage of that. That's exactly what Syracuse did. So the big question now is ACC play. How ready is Syracuse for the ACC? And the big thing you got to think about here is, can Syracuse start ACC play 4-1? Because when you have 4 non-conference losses on the board, which is not good, which is, Syracuse, you look back at, and it's not a lot, it's less than 5, but the times that Syracuse has lost 4 non-conference games under Jim Boeheim. They don't make the tournament. It's just the trend. I think they did it once off the top of my head and barely got in even then. So they've got some ground to make up in ACC play. They had a great run today against St. Bonaventure, overcame a slow second half against Arkansas State, and eventually pulled away in that game. So a lot of players that needed to feel that offensive confidence there, a little bit of a rhythm. They've got a week to work on Notre Dame now, so a lot of things are going their way. But just looking at the schedule here, Syracuse starts ACC play at Notre Dame. Notre Dame struggled today with Coppin State, of all teams. And Notre Dame is a shorthanded basketball team right now. Rex Pfluger is hurt. They've had some other injuries. They had a player transfer from this semester over to next, transfer to Siena. So today against Coppin State, a winless basketball team, by the way. Mike Bray only suited 10 players. He is shorthanded right now. And just to glance at that score while we're talking about it here, it was a lot closer than you would think a game like that would be and should be. The final score was 63-56. Notre Dame shot 28% in the second half of that game. So I don't know if you look at that as a positive or a negative. It could be certainly a negative, and that'll be a wake-up call for Notre Dame, and they will be ready for next week against Syracuse. Or maybe that's just a down Irish team that the Syracuse Orange will get in South Bend next week. So you start at Notre Dame on January 5th. Syracuse then 4 of 5 games at home. You've got Clemson on Wednesday the 9th, Georgia Tech on Saturday, January the 12th. You go to Duke on January 14th. Good luck with that, because Duke is Duke, and they're as good as ever and have 2 or 3 players they're going to be taken in the top 5 of the NBA draft. Then you go to Saturday, January 19th. You get Pittsburgh at home. Then you get Miami at home on a Thursday night. There's a lot of home games there. Not that home games have been the big advantage that Syracuse usually has. Remember, this is a year where they lost back-to-back non-conference games for the first time ever at the Carrier Dome. Technically, the first time since 1975, but certainly since the Dome opened in 1980 and since they joined the Big East Conference then in 1980. So home court advantage hasn't been exactly what you would think it should be for Syracuse, but having that many home games early on is clutch. And now you got to win 4 of your first 5 ACC games and set yourself up there. How ready is Syracuse for the ACC? Certainly they've got some scoring. They've got Elijah Hughes, who just looks as confident as anybody out there, can shoot the 3, can penetrate, give Syracuse that extra score. O'Shea Brissett had kind of a quiet day today, but we know what he's capable of. He's had some big games in ACC play. Tyus Battle just continues to be the player Syracuse needs him to be. As we mentioned, 21 points today. He's attacking the rim. He's shooting when necessary. Certainly knows the rigors of ACC play. He led the country in minutes a year ago. He knows what it takes in conference play. What Syracuse is missing is center play. Now, Marek Dolezaj has started the last 2 games at center. He's given Syracuse something there. Jim Boeheim just all over Pascal Chukwu once again today, out of position defensively. He is looking like he's going to be a bench player now, which you don't want to see when you got a player with that kind of wingspan who takes up that kind of space in the zone. But that's just it. He's taking up space at this point. He's not making a difference. Teams are not respecting him in the middle. Barama Sidibe goes back and forth, makes some good plays here and there. But then rare that you see a guy get called for tripping in a basketball game. But that happened to Barama today, reaching out for a player, grabbing his foot, actually got a flagrant foul on that call. Teddy TV in the building at the Carrier Dome today. Didn't expect Teddy Valentine at the Syracuse-St. Bonaventure game, but there he was. So the center position is still the biggest question mark for the Orange. The other big question mark is, where do you get that extra scoring? Jalen Carey didn't play much today. They're kind of taking it easy with him. He had a sore hip in the Arkansas State game. He practiced throughout the week. He did play today, just to give you his minutes from this game. Didn't get in there much, and I think that was just because of the way the guards were playing, and they wanted to take it easy with Jalen. He did play 19 minutes in this game with 4 points and 3 assists, so he got a little run in there, starting to get back to form after a little bit of a hip situation for him. But you have Jalen Carey. Look, I don't know what Buddy Boeheim is going to give you in ACC play. I expect Buddy Boeheim to have a great game today against a bad team like St. Bonaventure, but he just doesn't look like he's ready to handle the rigors of ACC play. It's Syracuse's better non-conference games he has either not played or has not played effectively. So who are the bench guys for the Orange? Who are the difference makers? Who rounds things out? Because you've got three big scorers that you're counting on. You want Frank Howard to round into form, and he looks, healthy. He looks confident, and he knows what it takes in ACC play, all the minutes it takes, the type of possessions, the type of, aggressive style that you need. So what Syracuse needs is that big four. They need four big players. I mentioned three. They need Frank to round out the fourth and then see who kind of fills in the gaps here and there. And they need something from that center position. If Marek can get the open shots he got today, he had some great passes, as we mentioned, 3 assists on the day. If he can get back to form that he was at the end of last season, not only in ACC play, but certainly in tournament play. But it started at the tail end of ACC play, into the ACC tournament, certainly into March. Marek Dolezaj was a difference maker. He was an X factor. And I think that's what Syracuse really needs, because you've got to respect both sides. If you don't have any presence in the middle, teams are just going to guard Syracuse out front, make Elijah, make Tyus, make O'Shea take challenging shots and make it harder for them to get those high percentage shots that they want. Now, Notre Dame, we mentioned, is a little short-handed, only 10 players. Rex Pfluger's gone, but, in South Bend, that's always a tough game. All those home games, Syracuse has got to get off to a good start in ACC play, because once you start digging in and going on those tough road trips, they do get Cameron early on, mixing road games and home games, the short turnarounds, and what ACC play can do to a team. Syracuse merely has to, they have no room for error. Last year, they had a little bit of room for error because they had a better non-conference slate. There's no room for error this year. They need at least 10 ACC wins. You want 11. There was a season just 2 years ago when Syracuse had 10 ACC wins. We all thought that was good enough to go in the tournament, and they don't get in. So you want 11 ACC wins to really feel good about your chances. And there's the new net rankings this year. Things are a little different. They don't use the RPI anymore. But bottom line is Syracuse's non-conference schedule did them no favors. They've got 4 non-conference losses, and now you go into the toughest conference in college basketball, arguably, with no room for errors. So can Syracuse continue to improve at a rate that will make them competitive in the ACC? We all start to find that out next Saturday in South Bend. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying here in the comments. A lot of you saying good ball movement on offense is the key moving forward. That is absolutely true. There's a lot of ISO play, a lot of guys that just kind of hold on to the ball a little bit too long. When they move that ball and they get into tempo, as they did today, starting in the first half and really kept it going through most of the game, they're a different team. They're a better team, and I think it's a team that wants to play at tempo. So I think you guys are right on there. John saying, Brent, did you just quote Jim Rome? Duke is Duke, and they are more than I didn't quote Jim Rome. I am a fan of Jim Rome, though. But Duke is Duke, and Duke is as good as ever. I mean, R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson, that team is loaded. That team is absolutely loaded. Texas Tech gave them a little bit of a push recently and almost upset them. Duke's going to lose at some point just because, I think it's college basketball and you're in a tough conference and somebody's going to bite you, but they're not going to lose much. And I don't certainly think they're going to lose to Syracuse on January 14th. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens on February 23rd, though. They've already sold over 34,000 tickets for that Syracuse-Duke game on February 23rd. So what kind of Syracuse team will it be then? I don't think they've got a good shot to beat Duke at Cameron, but at the Carrier Dome on the 23rd, we'll see how both teams are playing, but going to be a really, really tough matchup one way or the other. But to quote Jim Rome or quote anybody else, Duke is Duke, and Duke's really, really good this year. Let's see what else you guys are saying here in the comment section. As I was talking about, you guys tell me, as Josh mentions here, if Syracuse starts 0-5, they're not going to make the tournament. I can't disagree with that. You can't start 0-5 in ACC play. I don't think they're going to start 0-5 in ACC play, but I think if they start at, say, 3-2, you can fight your way out of that. 4-1 is ideal. You only got 2 wins in your first 5 with all those home games. You're just making it so much harder on yourself to go on the road, grab a couple of wins there. That's also a factor. That's also a huge thing that they measure into the net rankings, road wins, right? In league play, that helps Syracuse. When they went to Louisville and won, picked up enough road wins a year ago. So get those home wins, bank them, because when you start going on the road and it becomes must-win situations, it's just so much tougher in the ACC. Not only this year, but any year, but particularly this year for Syracuse because of the hole they put themselves in non-conference wise. I mentioned a couple of things that I feel Syracuse is ready for in ACC play, not ready for in ACC play. You guys tell me what you think they're ready for ACC play and what you think is just going to continue to be an issue for the Orange in ACC play. My man Ben saying that the offense looks vastly better because it's actually 5-on-5 when Dolja is on the floor. That's a great point, Ben. I'm wondering if that continues in ACC play, though. That's the big question. Can he keep that up? Can he keep that moving? Can he get those shots? Can they be a 5-on-5 basketball team once you start that ACC run? Because in non-conference play, they couldn't accomplish that. Old Dominion becomes a loss in a tougher game than most people expected. You know, this was the first really let's see, how can I put this? There wasn't a lot of drama in this game. And if you go through the non-conference schedule, Syracuse didn't start well. The scores were closer at halftime. They're losing games that they shouldn't. They lost back-to-back games at Madison Square Garden to Oregon and UConn. You add in Old Dominion. I think we expected Buffalo to be a tough game, and it was. Cornell was a tougher game right until, you know, the middle part of the second half until Syracuse pulled away. There was about 3 or 4 games on that non-conference slate where you really didn't expect the drama, and you got it. This was the first game really since the opener. They didn't have much of it at all. St. Bonaventure, boy, you know, a team that, you know, was tournament worthy. I think Mark Schmidt's a great coach, and he's building a great program there. That's just a really young team that's a year or two away from being competitive again in the Atlantic 10. You turn the ball over 25 times. I don't care who you are. It could be me, Ben, and 3 other commenters that are on this live stream right now. We could be a team with 25 turnovers, right? It'd probably be a lot closer score, but we could be a squad like that. Diane saying, where do you see Elijah Hughes contributing? The question is everywhere. The great thing about Elijah is you could put him at the forward, you could put him at the guard. He's a versatile player. He's the most confident player out there right now, shooting the 3. He's the most confident player offensively for this team. And I don't think teams are really going to start keying on him yet. I'm wondering when they will, because when you game plan for Syracuse, you go through, I mean, you watch film and you look at current stats and current trends. But I think most coaches say you got to lock in on Tyus and you got to lock in on O'Shea Brissett. Elijah Hughes still, I think, is not going to get the top defenders. He's not going to get the attention that a player that's playing at his level right now will get. That will change eventually. Diane in ACC play, teams are going to figure out how good this kid is, and they're going to, you know, press him and put a lot of defense on him and make his life a little tougher to get those shots off. But I just like that he can hit from almost anywhere in the 3-point arc. He's confident driving the ball. And if you've got those 3 in rhythm, you've got Tyus, O'Shea, and Elijah on the offensive end. Let Frank run the show. If Marek can get some of those open shots that we were mentioning a moment ago off of Ben's comment, now what you do is you open the floor up a little bit. Somebody brought up ball movement. That's got to continue. You know, Syracuse is going to play that 2-3 zone defense. I think the defense has improved the last few games. You know, some people question, we were doing this on my live chat today on syracuse.com. You guys should come by for that during games, by the way, saying, well, what did these games do for you? What do you get out of these games? To me, you got to know what it feels like to shoot well like Syracuse did today. You got to know what it's like to play great defense and get 25 turnovers and 32 points off those turnovers. You're not going to get that every game. But you got to bank that feeling so you can come back to it down the road. And I think I've seen an improved defensive team. I think they're moving better. And, again, it stinks to not have that length out there from Pascal Chukwu in the middle, but he's just taking up space. And even when you feed him the ball, he's struggling with it. And, you know, he got just absolutely lit into by Jim Boeheim on the sideline and spent a lot of the first half on the bench because he's given up that corner 3 when St. Bonaventure actually had somewhat of a run early in the game, and they were still down by, 12, 13 points at the time. But there was a stretch where they hit 3 3-point shots in a row, and it was partly due to Pascal not rotating on defense and getting to where he needs to be. So you got to put somebody out there that, just knows where to be, knows how to rotate. Unfortunately, Pascal is not there at this point. Let's see. Josh saying coach still needs to figure out some of those substitutions. I think they got behind on that when Jalen got hurt, when Frank was out, when they were trying to figure out the center position. I think they at least have kind of figured out what they want to do there. How much does Buddy play? I mean, this match, substitutions are all about matchups, right? It's all about countering what another team does. And, if I put this guy in, what's he going to do for me? The thought with Buddy is he's a three-point shooter. Jalen's an all-around guard that can penetrate, he's quick. He can get in the middle. He's not so much of a three-point shooter. He's still finding his way on defense. It's all about mixing things up. I don't think Jim Boeheim has quite his rotation yet. You want to have a more confident rotation going into ACC play, but it's all about matchups at this point, right? Let's see. Neil saying if Marek is our center against better ACC teams, we're in trouble. Love his play, but he's not a center. That's a point I can't disagree with, Neil. He's not a center. He's played a lot of center. He's had to hold down the fort at center, but he's not a center, he's not a 40-minute-a-game center. He's a 18 to 20-minute per game center when you need him there. But it's not his natural position, and, defensively you lose a lot there, at least in theory, when Marek's playing at center. He makes up for it in hustle. He makes up for it in heart. He makes up for it in hitting open shots, finding the open man today, doing all those, the dirty deeds, if you will, to quote an AC/DC song. But can you get 18 ACC games out of Marek at center? I don't think you can. I think that's a point that is a good one. Brian saying needed this type of win, but would have liked Howard and Chukwu to be part of the dominance. David saying, great game. Happy New Year from Rochester. Happy New Year to you, David, and everybody out there, by the way. It's going to be our last live show of the year, right? Because we'll be back next Saturday, January 5th against Notre Dame. And we'll be here after every game. We had, we kind of a scattered schedule throughout non-conference play. We took a couple games here and there off, but we'll be here doing this live chat after every ACC game, FYI. So come on by. Make it a habit to be here on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page live after the games. Or what we do is we take this chat and we put it on YouTube. If you want to watch it on your time, I would advise you to subscribe to Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube. We put it up on syracuse.com. It's always in my recap as well. Hope you guys can check out my recap on syracuse.com. That'll be up tomorrow morning. So tomorrow being Sunday morning, if you're watching this on Saturday. All our great coverage from the Dome. Chris Carlson was there. Donna DeToda was there today. I believe my man Mike Waters had the day off, but certainly Mike will be on the beat throughout the season. So hope you can read that, and hope you can be here for the live chats after the game. And we chat during the game as well on syracuse.com. So come by for those. That's all I have left in the shameless plug department. Antonio asking, why doesn't Braswell find more playing time? He has shined every time. That's a good question. Happy New Year to you, Javen, by the way, in Pittsburgh. Appreciate that. Yeah, you're in enemy territory down there with Pittsburgh. They're actually going to be better this year. You have to be better after you went winless in ACC play. But it looks like Jeff Capel is building a capable program, pun intended, there in Pittsburgh. But, Antonio, to answer your question, it's usually defense. If you're not getting time and you're asking about certain players not getting in, Howard Washington was a guy a lot of people had questions about. Turned out he needed a medical red shirt. He wasn't quite healthy, recovering from that injury a year ago. The answer is usually defense. Braswell is an athletic player, had a great dunk out there. He can shoot the three. Is he ready to handle the Raiders in the 2-3 zone? That's usually the answer to the question when a player is not getting enough time. But given the struggles at center, maybe he'll start to edge his way in there. You need another big man out there. Maybe Braswell has shown that he can get some quality minutes in ACC play time. He hasn't really gotten a lot of non-conference minutes so far. I don't expect him to get big minutes in ACC play, but we're always intrigued about that guy at the end of the bench who looks good in spots. And, hey, how come Boeheim doesn't play him? If you put him out there, who do you take out is always the question, right? So if he comes in, whose minutes is he taking? And is it worth it to take that other player's minutes in order to do that? Something to keep an eye on, certainly, as we go through ACC play. Brian mentioning that, saying Braswell would need to hold his own in the zone, and Carey needs to learn it and do it before they can bet on more positive minutes. That's absolutely true. I mean, the answer to a lot of your questions about Syracuse basketball usually ends up back in the defense department, right? Not always, but most of the time. And we'll end on Christina's thought here. Don't ever count out the Qs. We shall see. Syracuse 9-4 after this win over St. Bonaventure today, going to ACC play, and they need a big start in ACC play. It starts next week, next Saturday, against Notre Dame. That's when we will join you again here on Facebook Live, thanks to our friends at Krause Health. For now, we will say goodbye. We'll say Happy New Year. Thanks to our friends at Krause Health for presenting this Facebook Live chat. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the rest of 2018, and we'll see you next year.